We sit at the precipice of the season. It's time to talk NFL football, the Two Deep NFL podcast. Off and running, Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, Eric Eager, messing around with the light from Sumer Sports. Soren Petro with you. Remember, if you're catching us via the podcast, you can be a part of the conversation right there in the chat room. We can see your comments. Sometimes we react. Sometimes there's funny ones. We'll show them on the screen. If you want to be a part of the chat, we usually do it at 8 or 9 p.m. Central on Tuesdays, if you want to be a part of it. A lot to get to today on the 2 Deep podcast. One, we're going to preview the AFC West. Adam Hill from the Las Vegas Review-Journal and ESPN Las Vegas in Las Vegas, Nevada, will be with us to break down the Raiders, Chiefs, Chargers, Broncos, our last division to break down here on the 2 Deep. We'll talk about the holdouts going on, Chris Jones, Nick Bosa. The Bosa one not getting much hype, certainly not as much as the Chris Jones holdout is getting. Why? Like we said, AFC West Preview, we'll give our predictions for the entire AFC, the entire NFC, wild cards, who's going to the Super Bowl, the MVP. We'll talk about some of our bold and daring predictions for the NFL, plus give you what we think is the best game of the weekend. It's all coming up right now on the 2 Deep NFL podcast.
You're listening to the 2 Deep Podcast, the most complete analysis of the National Football League, breaking down the NFL like no one else can. 2 Deep is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Eric Eager, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Eric Eager is the vice president of research and development for Sumer Sports. Soren Petro was the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. 2 Deep is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are the hosts of the 2 Deep Football Podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Eric Eager, and Soren Petro.
And welcome. We are here, gentlemen. Finally, the NFL season about ready to rock and roll. We're going to preview our AFC West, as we said. We'll get to that here in a second. But real quick, let's talk about what is, I think, maybe the biggest news. Certainly Chris Jones, Jeff, is getting a lot of hype about his holdout. Not a lot from Nick Bosa. These are two of the top teams that are supposed to be contending for the Super Bowl. Is this a story that maybe even both of them are not getting the love that it deserves?
Well, Chris Jones is starting to get more attention just because they're playing in a couple of days. And this has been very real for a long time. We've watched it here, but, nationally, look, part of this is the New York Jets have become everybody's favorite story to talk about. They're dominating the national spotlight, and people are forgetting there's 31 other teams out there to be covered. But yeah, Chris Jones is certainly not going to be there on Thursday playing, and we don't know when he's going to come back. But Nick Bosa is intriguing as well, just because his family has a history of holding out. The dad played in the NFL, so he knows how things work. They're not afraid to play hardball. And the 49ers were talking optimistically about this a couple of weeks ago as if we knew what to expect. But now you're talking about you're into the season and you're about 3 or 4 days away from playing your own first game, and he's still nowhere to be found. I mean, they're going to pay him the biggest contract any defensive player's ever gotten. You might as well get it over with.
How about you, Eric? Do you think that this is not getting the attention when you consider these are two of the favorites in each of their conferences, and yet certainly for Bosa, we're not hearing much at all?
Well, I think the big part is that the 49ers have a lot going on that's not Nick Bosa related. They had the Trey Lance trade a couple weeks ago that everybody was talking about, and I also think, and I know we hear this, we feel this in Kansas City specifically, there's some melees over these holdouts because this is the first time in a long time that a player, especially at a premium position like Le'Veon Bell, running back, certainly held out into the season, but the first time that a premium position player has held out into the season in a long time. So I think that it's just reasonable for people. It wasn't getting the attention because he was being overshadowed by Trey Lance, the trade there. And then beyond that, like people just assumed he would sign and report, right? So that's kind of, I think, what the point has been. And I also think like Chris Jones's holdout has a little bit more teeth to it, meaning like I actually think Bosa has a much better chance of signing before the season starts than Jones, and not only because the game is tomorrow, Thursday, but also because like I actually think that they're closer than the Chiefs are with Jones, all told.
What about a trade? We got a couple of people, or at least Alex is asking, what could Bosa bring? 3 firsts, 2 firsts? And I think that's pretty rich when you consider how much cap you got to give. The cap is part of the penalty for taking on those players, but the Browns have cap room. The Bears have cap room. Could we see a last-second trade? Can you see a midseason trade for either one of these guys, Jeff?
No, I mean, Bosa is going to sign. I mean, he's 25 years old. He's exactly what you want from a player you're going to pay that kind of money to. Eric's right. Chris Jones is a little more complicated because of his age. I still don't know what kind of value you're going to get in a trade if you're the Chiefs to make a deal for him. I know that there was talk about the Bears, Ryan Poles having called them and talked about it, or at least investigated it. But realistically, I mean, if he leaves here as a free agent, they'll get a 3rd-round pick. Nobody's giving a 1st-round pick for him. So what you're hoping is someone gives up a 2nd-round pick for him. And I just don't know. The situation is so weird right now, and it's so malleable, right? It's like you just don't know when it's going to actually get resolved. And I think they're trying to keep things open with the agents and trying to keep things positive, but it just feels more and more like he's not going to be here. If that's the case, they're going to have to make a deal. They're going to have to accept something for him if they want to make a trade.
Yeah, no, and that's where you wonder when does frustration kick in, and they just say, okay, all right, we got to move on. We'll find out if that ends up happening. Let's talk about the rest of the AFC West. We welcome in to the festivities, friend of the podcast, a man who's actually filled in and helped host it, Adam Hill from the Las Vegas Review-Journal, ESPN Las Vegas. I wonder where he lives, guys. I can't tell based upon
or went to school.
The background, the hat. Representing there, Adam.
It's a big week, my friend. UNLV visits
Michigan.
Yeah, playing at the Big House, and I'm from Ann Arbor, so it's a big week for me in particular. It'll be exciting. Can't wait.
You're from Ann Arbor? I did not know that. Really?
I'm
from Ann Arbor.
Oh yeah. All right, there you go. I will be there for about 16 hours before going to Denver on Sunday morning, so it'll be fun.
Yeah. All right. All right. I was looking through the spreads today on the college games. I didn't even think about that connection again. Vegas and Michigan grads on tonight, but we do. Adam, let's talk a little bit about the AFC West. I know you're a busy man doing one of 74 different beats that you cover and or fantasy leagues that you participate.
Yeah, I was literally on the clock when you went to me, so I was a little thrown off there. So it was good. It was good. I appreciate that.
Let's start with the team you cover, the Raiders. Is there any reason to believe that this team will be better this year?
Do we have to?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, okay. I mean, it's a weird day, Soren. And see Steve Cofield in the background there?
Oh,
it's an appearance. Cameo appearance back there? It was a weird day in Raiderland, Soren. We're trying to figure things out. And obviously the Chandler Jones situation that was going on today, not beneficial for prepping for a game. And I just saw that as we were coming on, Josh Jacobs posted prayer hands emoji, so whatever that means.
Okay.
We'll try to figure that out here in the next couple of minutes. It's been strange, and I think it's been a kind of a weird build up to the season because I don't know what the goal or expectations really are around the building. I mean, I've insisted that they should have been in tank mode, but they just weren't. It feels like a 7-10 team, which I think is probably the top of the level that they could possibly achieve. I don't know what else they could do in this division, which is very, very tough. But it's been kind of weird. Last year there was so many lofty expectations that I didn't believe in, and they didn't, live up to those. And now they're kind of in no man's land where they need to be competing, but they don't really have the roster to, and it's a weird time.
Yeah. So how do you remedy that? Because it's a great point because you got Devontae Adams there, you got Josh Jacobs, you got Max Crosby, you got big name players, but then you also have Jimmy Garoppolo as a bridge quarterback. You don't have a lot of talent in other spots. Like, what if you were running the Raiders? What would you do? Well,
can I go to time machine and go backwards? Because I thought where the problem starts. I mean, obviously the problem starts in a lot of different ways. It started really with some really bad drafts. I just wrote the other day, like, the 2020 Raiders draft is an all-time epic failure, which you can't miss that badly when you've got 5 picks in the top 100. There was a 24-hour period last week. All 5 picks in the top 100 from the 2020 draft were not on NFL rosters. Not a single one of them was. Now, a couple of those guys signed a practice squad, so that changed, but you can't have those kind of drafts. And then I think a huge thing, and I actually talked to Eric about this when he was out in Vegas, but the fool's gold is the term that I've been using a lot of the playoff appearance. That was not a playoff team, and they made the playoffs. And then Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler come in, and they inherit a team that was in the playoffs. And you kind of think, if you have a playoff roster, all right, make an addition here and there, and they did. They went out and made a splash. You got Devontae Adams, but that's the kind of move you make if you think you're one player away. And this was not a team that was one player away. So now you're throwing resources into solidifying a quote-unquote playoff roster that just wasn't the case. And so they got set back a year, I think, in trying to rebuild. And now they're in this no man's land again with all these great superstar players at the top, but not enough depth, and being in a brutal division. I don't know. It's a really tough position to be in. Like, I think I would trade some of those guys away and try to rebuild draft picks for the future. But do Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler have that opportunity or that luxury? I don't think they do. So that's where they're in a tough spot. I mean, you could fully commit to a rebuild, but are you there to see it through? Which is a tough debate to have internally in the organization when you don't know what your future could be.
Yeah, I mean, we talked, as you said, we talked about this when we met up at Circa. Like, McDaniel, I actually feel for him, because he takes over a team that was like really a 7-10 team in 2021 that made the playoffs. Expectations are high. They had an 8.5 win total last year, but they were 6-1 to win their own division in a year where the Chiefs were down. It was just a weird set of circumstances. And in some ways, Adam, they were better last year than they were in 2021. If you look at, they gave the Chiefs a game at Arrowhead on a Monday night. They lost, a heartbreaker to Tennessee, a heartbreaker to Arizona, all within the first month and a half of the season. How does that put things? Do they have the proper perspective in the building that they were actually somewhat improved last year, but they didn't see it, sort of on the field?
I think they do. I think especially if you talk to Josh McDaniels, and he'll tell you there were a play away here, a play away there, and they were a decent team. It's just that that's not good enough, and you got to finish games. I do think there's almost the exact opposite of the Viking situation, where they won a lot of games that they probably shouldn't have last year, and they were there. The Raiders lost a bunch of games that they probably should have won. So I think there's that belief of a fix here, a fix there. Better communication between the coach and the quarterback, I think, will be helpful, and clearly that is the case. But I can see a scenario where things come together, where you've got Jimmy Garoppolo, a much better manager of what McDaniels wants to do. You certainly have all the talent around him. I think Hunter Renfrow is looking so much better than he did last year, which would be huge for Garoppolo, who's really struggling to throw the ball downfield, to have that possession guy underneath that can get open and develop that relationship. Like, you could see things coming together for the offense. The defense has playmakers. I don't know if they have enough depth. I think the linebacking core is going to be a weak spot over there. But you've got a guy like Marcus Peters who can make plays. Now, he gives up a lot of big plays too, but he's a playmaker. They haven't had that on that side of the ball. Obviously, if Tyree Wilson can, make the kind of moves that he made in that preseason game and not lose track of the quarterback on occasion, like, he could add to that pass rush with Max Crosby. That could be pretty good. I think the interior of the line, really underrated thing. They got Jerry Tillery at the end of last year, who, obviously lost in the game against the Rams with a silly penalty. But Chandler Jones actually played much better with Jerry Tillery paired with him. For some reason, they really worked well together. And I don't know, again, Chandler Jones' status right now, but if Jerry Tillery helps out that pass rush just by being an occupying force in the middle, I could see things going better for the defense too. Like, I could see how there's a path to this team being better again than they even were last year, and still losing games. They have a tough schedule. They've obviously got the brutal division, 6 games in your division that are going to be difficult to win. I was looking through, I believe the current numbers, the Raiders are only favored in 1 game, which is, it's wild. But I mean, it's a lot of 1 and 2 point spreads, but there's a lot of toss-up games on the schedule. So it's tough, man. I see a path where they can be better, but not necessarily win games.
All right. How about this question from Brad? He wants to know from your perspective, keeps jumping here. Keep going in the chat room. Keep popping chats in there. What kind of football guy is Mark Davis? You mentioned what's going on with Chandler Jones. I mean, that's like something that I think, Chandler Jones has popped off and been a malcontent at numerous places before. But is Davis a guy who knows football? Is his coach just buddy up to him and he's going to do whatever the coach says? How is the owner running the show?
I mean, I think he loves it. I mean, that's a good start. I always think that's important if you care about it and you're passionate. I don't know that he could break down X's and O's and help you out that way, but he loves it, and I think that's good to have an owner that's supportive of what you want to do. He definitely wants to have success. He's had the business success, of course, of moving to Vegas and what that's done for the franchise value, and I think an influx of cash that can help them be competitive, for a sustained period of time for sure. But you have to have the right administration in here. He thinks he still does. I know he believes very much in Dave Ziegler and by extension Josh McDaniels. They're kind of a package deal. So he cares about it. He's passionate about it. That's good. I don't know if he's his dad in terms of meddling, maybe the way that he did at times. But he loves it. And by the way, we see what can happen when he loves a project. Look no further than the Aces, which there's an Aces banner behind me here too. Look no further than them. He put all of his passion and love into them, and really invested heavily. And I think you can see that on the Raiders side as well, because he does care.
Really, really quick question, Adam. Do the Aces have the depth to play with the Liberty in the championship round this year?
I think they've been bored. I'm not too worried about the Aces. I think they'll be fine once it comes around. No, Liberty are good. And by the way, side note, real quick, that I don't think a lot of people know, Ronus Grasu re-signed to the Raiders practice squad yesterday. The fiance of Sabrina Ionescu.
Her husband, right?
Yeah, I think they're engaged. I don't think they got married yet, but yeah, they're together, and he re-signed yesterday. So a little bit of split allegiances at some points in the locker room, maybe. I know the offensive linemen were all gifted the new Ionescu ones yesterday. They were all showing those off on Instagram, so that's big. But yeah, I think the Aces are going to be fine. And I would, man, that series, Aces Liberty, if we do get it, which we should, that's going to be a fun series.
Petro's face got progressively redder during that segment.
I like the WNBA.
I get it.
Why the hell are we wasting time? Okay.
I'm not the sicko. I know Eager used to love to bet like every single game and every quarter and every second half spread and everything like that. So he is fully invested in the league.
That wasn't for a love of WNBA there. That was a love of gambling.
Yes.
Trying to cater to. I got a question for you about the Chargers. So much talk about Kellen Moore joining that staff as the offensive coordinator and what he'll mean for Justin Herbert. Are you bullish on that combination?
I am. And I'll say this. I was down at Chargers camp for a couple of days about 2 weeks ago when they had the joint practices with the Saints. Obviously the Saints have a bunch of Raiders connections, including Carr and Foster Moreau, and Jonathan Abram was there, and Brian Edwards was there. There's a ton of guys. So I got to check them out practicing for 2 days. And, I mean, I've obviously watched Justin Herbert from afar, watching his games and when he played the Raiders, things like that. We know how talented he is. But it's stunning to watch him practice. That guy is unbelievable. Just to watch him go through his drills and the throws that he makes there, and then the 7-on-7s, the 11-on-11s, like it was crazy just to watch how good that dude is. And he was going downfield, which we need to see a little bit more from him. We've seen so many checkdowns and so many short throws, which is kind of a waste of his arm talent. I go back to the wild Raiders-Chargers game a couple of years ago where they actually fell behind and just had to make a mad dash at the end. They went for a bunch of fourth downs and like 20, and he played so well. And you just want to see that all the time. I don't know we're going to see that, but I do think we'll see him pushing the ball downfield a little bit more, which should make the offense more effective and dynamic. And I'm definitely excited to see what they do this year.
Yeah, I think it's, Moore coming over there to me is one of the more underrated. And it's also, and this is more of like a vibes-based thing, but like, has the public given up on the Chargers? I feel like every 5 years, it was like 2018, right? 2017, they start 0-4, they finish 9-7, they miss the playoffs. Everybody's like, oh, forget San Diego, right? And then they go 12-4 and they match up with the Chiefs and try to win that division. Do you think that we're finally to an equilibrium on hype on the Chargers, and as such, Chiefs fans have something to be worried about?
Yeah, I don't know if the Chiefs fans have to worry about Travis Kelce's knee, I think is the bigger thing they have to worry about right now. I don't think they have to worry about the Chargers necessarily, but for the future, yeah, I think definitely that's the case. I'm more interested. Obviously, Herbert is great. I want to see if Brandon Staley is Brandon Staley again. I like to make Brandon Staley great again. I feel that whoever got his ear last year is my least favorite person in the entire world. I didn't think he did what he did 2 years ago, which is when I love the way he coached. Now, obviously, they made the playoffs last year, so you can't argue with it that much. But I thought he got a lot more traditional in some of the decisions that he made, which annoyed me as somebody who really, really loved what he did 2 years ago, and I thought put them in position to win games that they wouldn't have otherwise been in. So that's what I want to see out of the Chargers, and I think if he does that and sticks to what he believes in, I think that could be good for them.
So one quick follow-up. Like, it's funny because I think you're absolutely right. Because I think somebody got in Staley's ear and said, do not go for as many fourth downs, because all the other metrics that we measure at Sumer, so delay a game avoidance, basically like when you use your timeouts, all the stuff that like no one grills a coach over, really, he nailed again last year. He was a top 5 guy in decision making. It's just like his fourth down decisions took him from being first to fifth. And it was just like somebody got in his ear and said, did you see that Thursday night game? You went 2 for 5 on fourth downs and lost an overtime game to the Chiefs. Never again, sir. And like it was crazy how that happened.
Yeah, it frustrated me very much. I can do a whole diatribe I think I have done with Soren about just changing the way we even talk about going for fourth downs. Like, I think it should be considered conservative if you punt because it's stupid. And it's not the right decision in terms of helping your team win games, but that's a whole other issue that I have. But I do hope he returns to Brandon Staley again this year, which would be phenomenal.
Are you buying Sean Payton in the Broncos?
I was for a while. I don't know. I'm intrigued to see this weekend what they look like, and obviously one game doesn't tell everything, but I think we will tell a little bit of where Russell Wilson is. In terms of how much better he can make him and how much he can fix him. The easy narrative, and I know I talked to some sportsbook people this week that are like, hey, anything's better than Hackett, which, okay, that's fine, and it's a funny thing to say, but you have to see it in action too. And I do believe Sean Payton is a good coach. Is he good enough to fix what we saw last year to Russell Wilson? That'd be pretty impressive. I think that would be a call for being considered an all-time great coach if he's not already. So. It's a big task. I think it's great that he got rid of a lot of the, hangers on and the team 3 and having your own team around you kind of stuff. But it's a long way to go from where they were last year to being the kind of team that they believe they can be. And I also think it's going to be tough without any receivers right now, which is like Cortland Sutton and like you 3 are the receiving core, I think, for the Broncos. So that's not a good thing early on.
Petro runs a wicked whip route, though. I will say that.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, he can't catch it, though. His hands are questionable.
Yikes. He went after you there, Petro.
Yeah. I have one last question on the Broncos. It's Andy Reid's pulled a great second act here in Kansas City after a great run in Philadelphia, but it's really tough for a lot of coaches to go to a second place and have success. Are we overhyping the potential impact of Sean Payton?
I mean, I'll just go at myself and say I am, or at least I was for a long time for sure. I just thought, big upgrade. Russell Wilson will be fixed. This team's going to be really good. But for how long I was one who was in the camp of, hey, the Broncos are great if they had a quarterback. Like if they just had a quarterback, they'd be great. And so I thought Russell Wilson was going to completely change the game last year for them, and it didn't happen. So I mean, I was wrong about that. And then all of a sudden, Sean Payton comes in like, oh, now that's fixed again. I think. As you've had time to process it, and maybe it's just you got sick of the hype about him, and maybe that's what happened with me. But I thought all offseason it was going to be a much improved team, and that Payton was going to turn it around right away. And now I'm starting to have doubts about that. So it's a long way to go. I think is the part that maybe we underestimated. Maybe I'm not sure, but I was much more excited about them 3 months ago than I am now.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I think Payton's going to do to curb the Russell Wilson thing is run the football more. They got Mike McGlinchey to play right tackle. They got Javonte Williams back from injury. Obviously at wide receiver, I'm trying to think of the fourth guy that got injured. Tim Patrick's out for the season. Tight end, they traded Albert O. do you think that it's just simply one of those where they're just going to run the ball on early downs? And in past football lure, it would say, okay, you're going to protect your quarterback. But if you're in a division with Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, in a conference with, Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, like that's not a sustainable practice of winning. And last year, Russell Wilson on play action was worse than a league average quarterback overall. So to me, I agree with you, Adam. Initially, I was like, there's so much meat left on the bone here. But then when I actually looked at how badly Russell Wilson played, kind of however you sliced it, I get less optimistic than I was when I started.
Yeah, and that's where I'm at. And I think that is a great point, except that you start to look at it, and Javonte Williams, I think, is phenomenal. I love the guy, but it is, he is coming back fairly quickly, and it does sometimes take some time for a guy to come back off that surgery. And there was some weird reports a couple months ago that he had big setbacks and that he wasn't going to be ready for the season, and that's not the case. But I am concerned of how he looks. And then from some fantasy drafts in the past, Soren will remember that I am a massive Samaje Perine guy. I think he's incredible, but it hasn't happened. It hasn't been a thing. He's he had some serviceable moments for sure, but we haven't seen him step up and take this big load on. And I think he's going to have a pretty good season for them, as the change of pace and they got to spell Javonte. But if Javonte is not fully healthy, and if Samaje Perine doesn't fill the role that they're hoping from out of him, like I think it might be a little bit more difficult to run the ball, even if you do have an improved offensive line, which they clearly do. McGlinchey was a guy I thought the Raiders might be able to go after and might target this season. But I think he improves them right away too.
Adam, let's wrap with this. Just your view. You cover the Raiders, the Chiefs. How vulnerable are they to someone in this division actually catching them?
I think if it's anybody, it's the Chargers. Obviously, I think that's my pick for number 2. I thought, like I said, I don't know what the situation with Travis Kelce is. I hope it's very good, because I did just take him in the second round of this draft that I'm doing right now. So he fell all the way to the second round, which is pretty stunning. But people might be overreacting a little bit. But if he's healthy, I don't see it. I don't see the Chargers beating them in the division. But the door is, if it's not open, it's ajar. Like this division is really good, and the Chiefs have been obviously the standard for a long time. But it's getting significantly better, and the opportunity is there. And it's tough to maintain what the Chiefs have done for this long. They're still my pick by far. I'd have a hard time picking somebody else, but I wouldn't be completely stunned if it's the end of the year and the Chargers have beat them and Chiefs maybe slip into a wild card instead.
Adam Hill, Las Vegas Review-Journal, does a great job covering the Raiders. Also, you can hear him on ESPN Las Vegas with Steve Cofield, who did the spooky walk.
He's gone. He's gone.
Thankfully, he's gone. Adam, enjoy the season. We appreciate it. We'll let you focus directly on your draft. By the way, you made a mistake on the Kelce pick. I would have stayed away from myself.
Oh, no. No.
Best of luck with the draft, and we look forward to talking to you later on, buddy.
See you guys. Have a good one.
All right, there it is. Adam Hill joining us here in the Too Deep podcast. Our thanks to Adam as he does a fantastic job on both radio and the newspaper. By the way, we're brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, almost 30 years. They've been making parking lot problems disappear since 1994. You can find them online at GannAsphalt.com. That's GannAsphalt.com. Gentlemen, let's get to our predictions here, what we think is going to happen here in the NFL. We'll start. Let's go east to west. You want to do that? Well, do you want to take down the AFC, then the NFC? We'll go east to west and make predictions on what we're thinking. We are all set. Jeff, do you want to lead us off with your AFC East champion?
Buffalo Bills. I'm sticking with the champs till someone takes them out. I know the Jets are all hype right now and could possibly win that division, but until they do, I'm sticking with Josh Allen and crew.
Yeah, I think this is a funny one. Eric, you go ahead. Who do you got?
Bills.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. We all think we're crafty, and we take the Bills, and then we're all sitting there with the exact same pick, right? Like, to me, Eric, you've said it a number of times here already, like that, the Bills remind you, I can't remember what team you're using the example, but like a team that had been hyped, but now is not being hyped, and, it kind of flies under the radar screen. I think that's what we think. The Jets are getting hype. Even the Dolphins are getting some hype. Patriots always, Bill Belichick has some. Other teams, Bengals are getting hyped. Chiefs are in the news because of Chris Jones, but yet nobody is talking really about the Buffalo Bills. And I think that allows them to do their job in anonymity.
Yeah, it does. And I was thinking about the 06 Colts as the team that kind of, they ran into the Patriots a couple times. They got, upset at home by the Steelers. And, it was kind of, they were the favorites going into 2006, but then after starting 9-0, they finished 3-4. They got Bob Sanders back from injury, won a Super Bowl. I think you could see a similar kind of path there where the Bills kind of, I don't know if I said this on this show or not, but it's like, when you start running again, right? And you're like, oh, I'm going to add a quarter of a mile to every one of my runs for the next, 4 or 5 times. The problem is like that quarter of a mile doesn't seem like that much, but you still got to run the first 2 miles before then. And I think like with the Bills, it's always like, oh, all we have to do is beat the Chiefs. All we have to do is beat the Bengals. Like, no, you don't. Actually, you got to get through 17 games in this tough-ass conference. You got to get in the playoffs. You got to get good seeding, and then you got to beat the Chiefs. And I think like for a lot of teams, that gets demoralizing. And I think a lot of people see that with Buffalo. It's like, but I think last year's team was the demoralized team. I think last year's team was they go to Kansas City, they have a real chance to beat the Chiefs and host an AFC title game, and they don't. And then last year they kind of ran out of gas. I think this year people are doubting them enough where I think it's reasonable to assume they're gonna sneak up on some people.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the AFC North. I'm on the Bengals. Jeff?
Same thing. Yeah,
Eric?
they're the champs.
Yeah, that one's pretty easy. Bengals.
Is there? Are we giving them? Are we just pushing them forward too much? Are we looking past the Joe Burrow injury too much, Jeff? Is that something that could linger and be more of a problem than we realize? The contract, not to mention.
Yeah, I don't know if it's that big a problem for him. It feels like how he's practicing again. That's obviously a very encouraging sign. But I hear what you're saying. You don't want to just always be, okay, they're going to win it because of the most talented team. But you look at Baltimore, offensive questions, Pittsburgh, offensive questions, Cleveland, offensive questions. No questions about the offense in Cincinnati. I know that those guys are going to put up points and they're going to be electric.
Yeah, that's fair. Eric, you see it any other way?
I think Duke Tobin has done a really good job too. I mean, look at this roster. You look at the defensive backfield. They lose Jesse Bates. They have Dax Hill coming right in a first-round pick. In 2 years, they're going to lose Sam Hubbard and or Trey Hendrickson. And this past year, they just drafted Miles Murphy in the first round. So, like, I think that they're doing a really good job of sustaining. And obviously, there are big questions about what happens when they pay everybody. But I think that they're preparing for that well. This team. It's hard to find fault with the Bengals over the last 2 years.
All right, AFC South, Eric, who you got? Do you want to lead us off there?
I really, 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 really want to pick the Colts, but I'm picking the Jags. Are
you being serious?
Yeah,
it's a joke, right?
No,
the joke is wanting to pick the Colts, just to be clear, not the picking of the Jags, right, Jeff? That's
the Jags are like minus 160. They're like a huge favorite for this division, or huge, relatively speaking. But
I want to be clear. Jeff is questioning you wanting to pick the Colts, correct?
Yeah. Well, if Anthony Richardson hits, it's curtains for the rest of this division, in my opinion. But
if every young quarterback hits, it's curtains.
Trey Lance hit. Yeah, look out.
Yeah.
I'm just stating a fact. I really want Anthony Richardson to hit. I really want them to win the division. They're not going to, though. So
will he be better or worse than Zach Wilson?
Better, easily. We already know Zach Wilson's outcome.
Another guy you were very high on.
Yeah, I was wrong about Zach Wilson. It happens, Petro. I was also right about this prediction segment last year. The whole damn thing.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. I will give you that. Listen, it's the Jaguars, or what are we doing here? Like,
it's not even. It may be the worst division in football after the NFC South.
It is, and I don't
have really big issues on the offensive line and on defense. Like that is something. Like they have terrible defensive backs. They took Trayvon Walker over Aiden Hutchinson, which was still not a great decision. And offensive line, they're gone Jawan Taylor, and at left tackle, Cam Robinson's out for the first 6 games for PED. So, or 4 games, I want to say. So it's not a perfect team.
So I guess Eric is picking the Jags by just 3 games in that division.
I guess
the hair on my chinny chin, Petro.
Yeah. AFC West, Chiefs. I think we're all on the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Who scares them? Like I asked that of Adam Hill. We're talking to him, Jeff. Does anybody?
Chargers are the closest to him. I mean, we don't know how bad this Kelsey situation is going to be. We know it's not an ACL, but it doesn't mean he won't be out for 4 weeks. We don't know until. But if they're missing Kelsey and Chris Jones, that could be a rough month to start the season.
Let's throw in a Minihoo on a 6-game suspension.
Yeah.
I don't think
Darius Need has a bulky knee. Darius Tony's injured.
They're already. Now I'll say this: if they're having their injury wave early, the league better get them early, right? If they get healthy later, if these guys, if they sit 3-4 games and they manage to come out of the first 7, 5-2, then the rest of the league is hosed. This is their opportunity to get them. A team like the Lions has to get them in this opener. If Travis Kelce,
Jacksonville too,
if Travis Kelce's not going to play, you got to make him pay when he doesn't play. All right, wild card. I'm looking at what we have. We all have the Chargers. Like that's the team that we think could run down. Adam said that as well on the Chiefs. But do you see a scenario, Eric, where the Chargers botch this? Are you you ask Cowboy fans about Kellen Moore? They will not give the glowing returns that Adam Hill did. They'll say, "Yeah, look for 2 goes and 2 button hooks."
Yeah, the educational system in Texas is not great. Whenever they have an ice storm, they can't heat their house. So I would be just a little slow to take a person from Texas that opinion seriously. Like when Kellen Moore is the offense coordinator in Dallas, they've been a top 5 offense basically the entire time. So I kind of look at the results and like that. Okay. And it's not like Dak Prescott is Johnny Unitas either.
Are you buying Kellen Moore, Jeff?
I am. I think he makes a huge difference. And look, really the bigger factor is can they stay healthy? If they stayed healthy last year, they probably win 2 or 3 more games and have a better seed in the playoffs and are more of a threat to the Chiefs in the division. So if they can keep guys upright and on the field, I like them a lot.
All right, it stays boring because we've all got the Jets, right? Like, is there a scenario where this blows up, Jeff, where the Jets, don't end up living up to their expectations?
The only scenario where it goes wrong is the one we all know. Aaron Rodgers is getting beat to hell and can't play football. I mean, I watched Hard Knocks. His attitude is he's like a rookie running around there. I mean, he's talking about living a dream and, he's still talented. And that offense is talented. And the defense, there's so much talent there that it's hard to imagine it not working. But I do suspect there will be some bumps in the road, as there always are. They will have players get hurt along the way. But the only thing that would stop them would be Aaron Rodgers being hurt. Other than that, I think they're going to win 11, 12 games.
If you look at the talent, they ought to beat the Bills, shouldn't they, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that it's very similar to Tampa Bay. The only difference is this team has a week 7 bye. That Tampa Bay team had, I want to say, a week 13 bye right after they played the Chiefs. That helped, right? Because, very similar. Buffalo is a team that couldn't get over the hump. They're in the same division, just like New Orleans was a team that couldn't get over the hump, in Tampa's division. New Orleans humbled Tampa twice during the regular season, and then in the playoffs, they put everything together. I think this Jets team has a similar possibility as its ceiling, which is early on, they kind of get shown the ropes a little bit by the Bills, and then later on in the season, all that talent comes together. I mean, I agree. They have depth pass rushing, they have depth in the secondary. Offensive line is a real problem, and Rodgers is not. As Rodgers has always played with good offensive lines. That's the other thing about him that's different. So I think there's a little bit. I think I could see them winning the Super Bowl, but I have them behind Buffalo. I'm
not 100% bought in on the coaching staff. Right, as I've watched the Hard Knocks, Robert Saleh does not blow me away. He looks real coordinator-ish. Real rah-rah. Let's go lift with the fellas. Look at me run stairs. I'm not all in on that. That's one of the reasons why I'm on the Bills to win the division. All right, let's go with our final wild card team because all of us have something different. Eric, why don't you start? Justify this.
I've stuck with this for a while. I think that we're just 2 years removed from Taysom Hill, Trevor Siemian, Ian Book, and Jameis Winston going 9-8 and being a heroic comeback by the Niners in Week 18 away from the playoffs under Sean Payton. The Broncos defense last year was incredible until the season kind of ran its course. They bring back almost all the same personnel except for Bradley Chubb, who isn't even that good, actually. And I think that this is a dark horse team in the AFC, the Broncos.
Okay. Jeff?
Browns. A lot of the same reasons. I mean, I was really thinking, look, in that spot, you're thinking Browns, Broncos, Dolphins, Steelers, Ravens, right? Maybe the Titans. And they're all about the same level. I took Cleveland just because of that group. They're the most talented. And they also have the best, I think if he plays at the level he played before, the best quarterback. And so I think Deshaun Watson with a full year to be the leader of that team, Jim Schwartz coming over to run the defense, bringing over Zadarius Smith if he stays healthy, combining him with Myles Garrett. They got two good corners and Greg Newsome and Denzel Ward. Big run game with Chubb. They got a lot of things to like. So for me to go with a team that could be that 7th seed, probably be around a 10-win team, I think Cleveland gets it done.
I'm with you. I wanted to get all crafty and take the Cleveland Browns as well, but they are the Browns, and the Ravens are the Ravens. John Harbaugh gets things done. Kevin Stefanski will be fired after this year after they disappoint and don't make the playoffs. And Lamar Jackson, I think, is going to play pretty well. I mean, I think they're going to I'm optimistic that offensively they get the most out of him, that instead of designed runs, they drop him back and say, listen, if you've got the lane, run. But they don't just have him get knocked around as much. He's a little bit more, running in open space. So I like Lamar Jackson and the Ravens to be better offensively. I know defensively they were terrible, 2 years ago? Last year the numbers were better. I'm not sure which one is real, but I'm going to put my money on John Harbaugh, and I'll take the Baltimore Ravens. All right, let's turn our attention to the NFC. By the way, we're brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Listen, why risk accidents and liabilities in your parking lot? You don't have to. I'll get your parking lot restriped today. A brightly striped lot will cut down on accidents. Keep your parking lot as safe as possible. Go to GannAsphalt.com. That's GannAsphalt.com. And don't forget, the weekend dates are almost gone. So if you need the seal coating before the weather turns, go to GannAsphalt.com and get signed up right now. Best in the business, making parking lot problems disappear since 1994. It's Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proud sponsor of the Too Deep NFL podcast. NFC East, Eric. Lead us off. Who you got coming out of the NFC East?
Dallas.
I thought I was all crafty and I was going to be the only one. I'm on the Cowboys as well. I do think I'm banking on a Super Bowl hangover out of the Philadelphia Eagles, first and foremost. I also think Mike McCarthy can flat out coach. I think the Cowboys are a pretty talented team, and I don't want to just chalk it all the way up. So I've got the Dallas Cowboys as well. Jeff, you're shaking your head. I know.
I'm bucking history, and I know no one's repeated in this division in 18 years.
But if a team should, it's this one.
I'm gonna take Philadelphia. They got the best offensive line, the best defensive line in the division, the best quarterback, and even though they lost both coordinators, I still feel like they have more ways to win games than anybody else in that division, including the Cowboys. They might not have the splash player of Micah Parsons or someone like that, but they got everything else.
Okay. All right. Let's go to the NFC North. Jeff, I'll give you the honors since you're actually from Michigan, even though Eric likes to try to steal your thunder when it comes to talking about your hometown Lions.
Yeah, nothing worse than an old NFC Central rival trying to get on the bandwagon. But Eric's been driving this truck for a long time. I'm finally on it. I'm taking the Lions.
Why? Why are you finally on it? What's changed?
Well, just being around the last couple of years, I think the culture there is real. I feel like their mindset is right. I was there in training camp. There's a lot of talk about we haven't won anything yet. Usually teams that are that young and that good and that much potential, they're starting to feel themselves a little bit. They all talk about we didn't do anything in 2022. So they have a lot of desire to live up to the potential and the right attitude to make that happen.
All right, Eric.
To be fair to Jeff, he did believe at the end last year. I think he, like I did, picked the Lions to be the 7th seed in this episode. And, they didn't make the 7 seed, but you can blame Nathaniel Hackett for lining up for a 64-yard field goal in week 1 against the Seahawks for that one. But, I'm picking Detroit.
Okay. I am not. Listen.
Wow.
Chargers going to Charger and Lions going to Lion. Why the hell are we all jumping on the Lions? I don't get it. Dan Campbell's come out of the gates like a turd both years. 1-6 last year, 0-10-1 the year before. I don't know why anybody thinks he's going to pounce on this division now. He opens with the Chiefs, albeit a banged-up Kansas City Chiefs team. I'm not buying it. No. Green Bay Packers, baby. They have been there. They have done it. They will look more like an Alex Smith version of the Green Bay Packers, but they will run the ball. The defense is finally going to live up to the hype about it and be a quality defensive team. I am on the Green Bay Packers in the NFC North. Tell me I'm wrong.
We're doing bold predictions already.
I like the Packers. I think every person we were in Vegas liked the Packers. Like, I don't mind that. They opened 5-1 to win the division. Now it's more like 7-2. It's not terrible. Not a terrible pick by you, Petro, for once.
Thank you. I will tell you that, Jeff, there's a pretty good chance you hear that statement again in my bold and daring predictions because I am bold and daring when it comes to the Green Bay Packers. Let's just be clear about that. So I've got the Packers winning the NFC North. NFC South. Eric, you and I both are on the Carolina Panthers. We've been tripping about this for a while. There's no mystery there. Why are you bullish on the Panthers?
There's nothing there. It does make me a little worried because you have seen the betting markets move about a third of a win under on the Panthers since the preseason. They saw, Bryce Young play, possibly Brian Burns holding out is a concern. They go to Atlanta this week. We know the Falcons are going to blow that game, so that's a good start. But I like Frank Reich a lot, and I like Ejiro Evero, the defensive coordinator, a lot. I think defensively they're kind of loaded, actually. And so that's an easy division with an easy schedule. And I will be damned if I see Derek Carr host a playoff game in his career. So,
okay. Derek Carr down with the New Orleans Saints. Jeff, that's your squad, right?
Yeah, maybe I have recency bias after watching them play against the Chiefs. Maybe that swayed me. I just think it's a horrible division, and you got to pick somebody. So I'm going with the team that has the most veteran quarterback. And even though they're old, they still have some players on defense. I mean, DeMario Davis can still make some things happen. Cam Jordan, those guys, Marshawn Lattimore. So I don't think they're going to be a great team, but I think I trust their offense more than I trust Bryce Young in Carolina right now.
I don't know that a world that has Dennis White as a playoff coach is a world I want to live in. I don't.
Dennis Allen.
Dennis Allen. Yes, thank you. Dennis Allen.
You got the first name right this time, which is usually the other way around.
I'm usually in the ballpark.
He's thinking of Mike White.
All right, Jeff. Let's stay with you on the NFC West. Where are you going there?
Niners. That's an easy one. I think they run away with it.
I do too. I've got the Niners as well, but Eric, you're not buying it.
No, I'm Seahawks. This is a 2-team race. Seahawks have a really good offense. They have a really good coach. Pass rush concerns me, but Jamal Adams is probably going to come back at some point and be effective there. It's really hard to lose when you got 2 young, good tackles. You got 3 great wide receivers and a quarterback with a clue. I think that the Niners will make the playoffs, but it will be a grind for them this year.
I don't. The wild cards aren't even really entertaining that we've got. I mean, those of us that have the Cowboys have the Eagles as a wild card. Jeff, you have the Cowboys. So we've got both those teams making it. Those of us that have the Niners have the Seahawks. The Seahawks have the Niners. So we've got both of those teams making it. I've got the Lions, and you guys have got the Packers. It's just the flips of whatever each of us have for the division. We've got the other one being the wild card.
A lack of options is what that's called.
Yeah, a lack of options. And a lack of an NFC South.
Yep.
Right? There was no consideration to anybody making it out of the NFC South. All right, AFC champ for you, Eric, is who?
Bills.
Okay, I'm on the Bills as well. Jeff, you have the
Jets.
Bills Super Bowl. Jets.
Did we not do wild card? We
Jets.
did wild card.
I went through them that it's the flip flop of what each of us had.
Got it.
Pay attention.
I'm paying attention.
At least act like it. So we're on the Bills. Jeff, you're on the Jets.
Yep.
Okay.
Good for you, Jeff.
Who do they go?
Niners. Jets over Niners.
Jets over Niners. All right.
31-21. It was a Hard Knocks McCole Hardman episode.
I've got a Bills Niners Super Bowl. Eric.
Oh, the Swami, the Chris Berman special. I'm going Bills Lions.
Bills Lions.
Oh, wow.
I think the Niners and Seahawks beat each other up. I think that the Cowboys and Eagles beat each other up. I think Detroit gets the 1 seed and rides it in the NFC goes to Pontiac, Jeff.
Actually, it's Detroit. They play downtown.
I know. I'm just being a funny guy.
Yeah.
That's brutal. All right, Super Bowl champion.
Brutal. Hold on, back up. What was you guys have tempered your response to my Super Bowl pick relative to last year when I was resoundingly called a moron. The Lions are a top team in the NFC? 3, 4?
Top 3 or top 3?
Well, part of the reason I called you a moron, because I went back and listened to that, is the year before you called the Eagles the worst team in football.
What did I say? Because I remember the clip again. You got after me and I said, when the world changes, I change my mind, Petro.
All right. I thought it was like, I think the sun shined on a dog's ass. There's what I think happened. We'll find out.
I think the Eagles were a legitimate Super Bowl contender at this time last year.
Oh, I think they absolutely were because of the way they played it. It's proven that they were, but that wasn't why you picked them.
Why?
You back-assed into it. You're trying to make up for your horrible pick the year before.
No.
Who was the year before?
When he said the Eagles were the worst team in football.
Okay.
But the Eagles were a terrible team going into that year, and Nick Sirianni kind of did the thing. And then they went ahead and got A.J. Brown, and they got Jalen Hurts developed and all this stuff. Like, things change, Petro.
Okay. Super Bowl champion, I've got the Bills. Eager.
Bills.
Jeff?
Bills over Lions. Lions,
Jets. Jets over Niners.
It has to break your heart before you become a champion.
Jets, it's like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers all over again. Aaron Rodgers goes and gets his Super Bowl.
Right.
With the
Broadway story.
Yeah. MVP, Jeff.
Joey B. Joe Burrow.
Eric?
Josh Allen.
I'll go Patrick Mahomes. I think the injuries, it's gonna be a lot of shootouts. I think the numbers are gonna be even bigger. They're not going to be as good.
1,200-yard year for MVS.
We'll get some other selections here in a minute. Number 1 overall pick, worst team in football is who, Eric?
Cardinals.
Yeah. They're trying to pick first. Yeah. If you pick anybody but them, it might be someone else, but I don't know how. The Cardinals are just terrible. All right, offensive player of the year, Jeff.
Cheetah, Tyreek Hill, 2,000-yard season.
Oh, okay. Eric?
That's one of my bold daring predictions.
Yeah, we'll get to mine here in a minute, too.
Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Okay.
Going Cooper Kupp on the league in 2023.
I'll go Justin Jefferson. And I've got the same first 2,000-yard season. Justin Jefferson goes for 2,000. That's where I'm at. Defensive player of the year. I think we're probably all on the same page with this. Micah Parsons is the guy, right?
Michael Parsons.
Especially with Chris Jones holding out, Aaron Donald getting older. It'd be a tough get somewhere else. Surprise. Who's your surprise team?
Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, Packers. I'm on the Packers. Eric, you're on the Packers, right?
Yep.
Okay. Disappointment. Who's the biggest disappointment for you, Jeff?
The G-Men.
Yeah.
Too much hype around Brian Daboll and that crew for a team that won 9 games last year.
Yeah, I'm with you. Daniel Jones, this is the team that regresses back and goes 7-10. Daniel Jones is nothing special, and that'll be shown. The Giants are it. And I can't wait to hear Eric justify a team that had the number 1 overall pick in the draft is somehow going to disappoint.
Their win total is 7.5, Petro, right? So the league opened the Bears. The Bears opened the season with better odds to win the North, open the betting season with better odds to win the North than your Green Bay Packers, right? And their odds are about the same. They have the same win total, similar odds. I don't know how much Twitter you guys the Justin Fields hype is out of control. The Matt Eberflus hype is out of control. And the national narrative around the Bears is they're going to be good, and they are not going to be good. They had 20 sacks last year, and 7 of them were by something named Tevis Gibson, who just got cut. And they brought in Yannick Ngakoue, who was like the worst effort defensive lineman in the NFL that's good. And they're awful. And again, 7.5. This team is doubling their win total in the markets right now, and it's absurd. So yes, the Bears are a reasonable choice for this relative to expectations. It would be a disappointment.
All right, because of Eric's need to follow up 3 times on every question with Adam Hill earlier, we have to cook through our bold and daring predictions at this point. Jeff, did you notice that too, Jeff?
Yeah, that's right.
We talked about what the plan is, and then 2 of us execute it.
Yeah, Eric pulls out his scroll of spreadsheets to get the one question about Aces and Liberty.
You just hung out with him, for God's sake, like a week ago. What the hell did you need?
No, I gotta say, Adam came to Circa, asked me a bunch of questions. We talked about life for about 5 minutes, and then he left. He was very on the ball.
Busy man. He covers literally everything in Vegas.
I don't deny it. The guy's a grinder.
All right, bold and daring predictions. We'll go 1 each. We'll rock through this quickly because we have another podcast to do, Eric. All right, Jeff, we'll start with you.
Jordan Love makes the Pro Bowl in his first year as a starter.
Okay, Eric.
The Lions will get the number 1 seed in the NFC.
All right, Sean Payton has a losing record. I'm convinced of that. Jeff.
I've already teased my second one. Tyreek Hill surpasses 2,000 receiving yards because he would have done it last year if Tua hadn't gotten hurt.
Okay. Eric?
My second one is that the Dolphins and Patriots are going to clean house after missing the playoffs.
So Belichick's done after this year.
Yep.
Okay. All right. I've got Justin Jefferson topping 2,000 yards. Jeff, number 3.
This is more bold and daring, given that he's already lost 2 receivers to injury, but Russell Wilson will have a bounce back year under Sean Payton.
Eric?
Teams will be too stupid to fair catch kickoffs.
Okay. Is that bold or daring or just the norm?
Well, I think it's just like teams are very bad at they're very bad at adjusting to what an edge is, right? Like they're just bad at these things. It took them years to understand the current kickoff. So
okay. I actually had 2 others. I was gonna get rid of one. I'm not sure. I'm just gonna throw both of them out there. Mike Tomlin has his first losing season.
Ooh.
And Patrick Mahomes becomes the first quarterback to throw for 6,000 yards.
Yeah. That's bold and daring.
I've got him on the MVP. We want bold and daring predictions, right?
That is what, 350 a game, 360 a game?
Not people will do what they always did, like Eric just gave us, right? We wanted bold and daring.
Yeah.
Right?
That's true.
So there you go. There we have it. All right. Any one game real quick that's your favorite game that you're looking for this weekend? I put it up there, so I want to make sure we throw it out there. Is the only reason.
Jets Bills, September 11th. I lived in New York on September 11th. That already has meaning, but those 2 teams locking up, Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen.
Bears Packers 4:25 Eastern.
Why?
Because the Packers are going to show people that they're actually decent, and the Bears are going to show the Bears are going to lose by 14, but Justin Fields is going to have a 70-yard touchdown run, and everybody's going to be hyped about it.
Okay. Dolphins Chargers. Tua versus Herbert. 2 teams that are supposed to be in the mix and fighting for the division championship. One of them is going to start 0-1 and be answering questions right out of the gate as to whether or not they're a disappointment. I think that's a under the radar big game. All right, that's going to do it for us. Remember, we're brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warranty. Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer, helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Contact them today, GannAsphalt.com, or call 816-484-3338. For Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, Eric Eager from Consumer Sports, my name is Soren Petro, saying thank you very much for joining us here on the 2 Deep NFL Podcast.